It's October 3rd. Welcome to Dogs Without Mail-In Ballots. Oh, you didn't get to see the pooch, the official mascot of this program? Why don't we have an official sponsor? That might be a little bit more useful. It occurred to me earlier, we've done a number of these segments already, and that everyone, I think, except for Mary Moore Easter, has performed at Cheap Theater. And in my introductions to the various guests, I mention, or try always to mention, that they were part of Cheap Theater. And it's not that Cheap Theater is that big of a deal, it is to me, or it is that a big of a deal to many of the people I introduce, but it's the only community I have. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on LinkedIn. I don't connect with the broader community and thus have lost a number of friends who do go on Facebook and are not going to get in touch with me otherwise. But it is there in Cheap Theater, in a dark banquet space where you can have a number of beers, a great number of beers where I'm most comfortable. And I say that because the earlier show we did today and the ones we do before midnight always have me differently edgy because I'm not yet in my comfort zone. When I'm caffeinated, I'm panicked, I don't know what to say. After I say things, I think that I said them all wrong, and possibly did, and to my credit, possibly made better sense than I thought that I could. But I wanted to say that I'm trying to slip into this role, what role is this, a little bit better. Welcome to Dogs Without Mail-In Ballots. Our first guest I've heard 3 times total, Gregory Pickett. He's a poet, storyteller, he's a teacher. He's a convicted trespasser. He went to Chicago State University, got a degree in writing. And then I wrote down what he got, because this is very cool. He got first place finalist, National Storytelling Festival Slam, Moth Storytelling Grand Slam champion, and Minneapolis Slam, Grand Slam, Slam and Poetry Slam, a damn story slam thing. He's a lot of fun. He's really good. He has a huge heart. He did a really cool chapbook, Voodoo Rain in Chicago. That's 2014. Yeah. It's 5 years, or 6 years, I can't do the math. It's time to do another chapbook. It's not like a 300-page, okay. Gregory Pickett.
Thank you. That was an awesome introduction. Okay. It was a beautiful Monday afternoon. Blue skies, the sun was out, birds were singing and shit. And I was living in Virginia at the time, and I had a one-way ticket to Illinois leaving in the morning, and an apartment waiting for me at Western Illinois University, where I would go back and finish my degree and everything would be okay. That was the plan. It was a good plan, a strong plan. I just had one more thing to do before I went on my adventure. I had to fuck my ex-girlfriend one last time. She was crazy, and I don't know why, but crazy pussy, it's just the best. So there I am walking down the street to get that farewell fuck. And as I'm walking up to her house, I see 5 or 6 police cars, several cops, the ex-girlfriend handcuffed and crying, and the guy she was currently fucking on the ground, face down, also handcuffed. So yeah, my spidey senses were fucking tingling. I turned around immediately to walk the opposite direction, and I hear from behind me, "Hey, freeze! Don't you fucking move. Put your hands above your head. Don't you try fucking to run, because if you run, I'm not going to chase you. And you can't outrun this bullet." So I immediately froze. I placed my hands on my head. I pissed myself a little. And the cop walks closer to me and he says, "Now turn around, slowly." "Who the fuck are you? What are you doing over here? Looking to score? Did we beat you to it? You got an ID?" And I said, "No, sir. You see, that girl over there that's handcuffed and crying, that's my ex. And I'm leaving the state tomorrow to go back to college. And I just wanted to fuck her one more time. But clearly, she's busy." And he says, "College? Oh, gonna go get your degree, huh? Become a model citizen, huh? You look like another piece of shit thug to me." And I said, "No, sir, I am not a thug." And the cop replied, "Shut the fuck up. You're all the same." At this point, The call came back over the radio from checking my ID. 349, be advised, suspect is wanted for trespassing, over. And the cop says, copy that, over. And he looks at me with this fresh malice in his eyes, and he says, well. Looks like you ain't going nowhere, college boy. That bitch you came over here to bang put a restraining order out on you for trespassing. He starts laughing, and then he begins reading me my rights, and he's putting me in the back of the squad car, and he whispers to me, like I said, you're all the same. And he slams the door shut. I was absolutely stunned. Mad as hell, shocked beyond belief. I was thinking, crazy pussy is the best, but it can't be worth all of this. And I also thought, racist prick. I was staring at the back of his neck, and it was a bright cherry red, and I'm thinking, this must be why they call them rednecks. Shit, maybe I'm racist too. So, we get to this room that served as kind of a staging area for us hardened criminals before actually being locked up. It was a cold gray room with a chair, and there was a TV on the wall, and I sat down in a chair, and the TV screen flicks on, and another white man appeared telling me that I would be placed in jail for the crime of trespassing, until which time I will make an appearance in court. I don't know who this white man was, judge, lawyer, cop. I just thought, I guess we all look the same to him. So the next stop was jail. After the fingerprinting and waiting, I traded in my clothing for a bright orange jumpsuit. I put the jumpsuit on, and I was handcuffed and leg cuffed with several other prisoners, and we were led to our cells. Now, these were huge cells that housed like 20 inmates to an area. I was mad as hell, but then I realized I was also tired as hell. Tried to lay down on the cot that I was assigned when a guy walks up to my bunk and says, hey, don't you live on Charlotte Street? I said, yeah. He says, drive a green Mustang, right? I said, yeah, because he had my attention at this point. And he was, scratching his braids a little bit. And he says, your girl, I fucked her one day, right? And I said, no, I did not know that. And I thought, what the fuck? It was not news to me that my crazy ex-girlfriend was a bit on the promiscuous side. I was just blown away by the fact that I met one of these guys in jail. And all I could say was, well, yeah, small world. And so I cursed and I laid down again. And over the course of about 12 hours, that same scene played out about 6 or 7 different times, to the point where somebody walked up to my bunk and said, hey, you live on Charlotte Street? My response was, yeah, lived on Charlotte, had a green Mustang, you probably fucked my girl, my name is Greg. Eventually, I fell asleep. Next day, Tuesday, I was beginning to think that I would never get my day in court. It had only been like 24 hours, and I was already giving up hope. I felt like every minute I was losing a little bit of my humanity. I was thinking, how the hell do people do 10, 20-year sentences, life sentences? And I was in there for fucking trespassing. And the guy in the bunk above me was there for attempted robbery. And the guy in the bunk across from me was there for attempted murder. He was a nice guy, though. I was look at him, and he looked more like a high school English teacher more than a cold-blooded killer. A little tapered little afro and thin little mustache. And we had these deep conversations about free will and the justice system and European cuisine. He told me his greatest dream would be to go to England and taste authentic jellied eel. And it was in that moment I realized I was becoming friends with a suspected killer. What the fuck was my life coming to? Wednesday came and went with the same bullshit, same thoughts. And earlier in the day, a young guy comes into the pod, and he's talking big shit. Yeah, they got me for Grand Theft Auto, but I'm the best though, really. Shit, I stole a Rolls Royce just last week, and a dope-ass Ferrari before that. And from out of nowhere, a voice said out loud what we were all thinking. Hey, yo, shut the fuck up. You're not the best. You're in here with us, you idiot. I went to sleep thinking about all the mistakes, all the choices I had made that had led me to that current situation. It was like 3 a.m. and I couldn't sleep. I decided there's got to be something that's going to make me sleep this night. Now I realized there were about 6 or 7 other guys that also couldn't sleep, and they decided they were going to have themselves a little rap circle, and they were all fucking terrible. And so I jumped out of my bunk, walked over to the rap circle, and just stood there. And one of them looks at me like he wanted to kick my ass and says, "The fuck do you want?" And I said, "Yo, I'm tired of these jealous cats trying to deceive me. I'm tired of trying to get you cats to believe me. I put them all out like cigarette butts, lyrically slashing on dudes, leaving deep cuts. Get the fuck off my back, you non-lyrical monkey. I spread you like peanut butter, creamy and chunky. You spend your time trying to get a style like Fubu. I ate that shit up like Chinese food called Mushu. Yeah, I just use you. Wicked style of voodoo. Jump in the jets while you look for a used Zuzu, etc., etc., etc." And so after I was done with my lyrical barrage, one of these guys says, "Shit, I forgot what I was thinking. You know, fuck this, I'm kind of tired." And then they all kind of agreed, and then another guy said, "Not bad, Chi-Town." Boom, there you go. I now have a jailhouse nickname. It's Chi-Town. I don't know how they knew I was from Chicago, but there it is. I'm now Chi-Town in jail. And so the next day, I hear, "Hey, Chi-Town, you want to get some of this here cocaine?" I said, I had to make sure we were still in jail. I was, "Cocaine? Where the fuck did you get cocaine?" And he said, "You see that CO over there? He doesn't give a fuck about the law. All he cares about is money. And all I care about is getting high." And so I thought, I guess we all look the same to him. I declined on the cocaine because, I was in fucking jail. And I thought that wasn't the best use of my time, is doing cocaine in jail. So day in, day out, weekend came and left. And Monday, all over again. It was time for my day in court. They marched us in front of the judge, shackled by the ankle to 5 other inmates. And the judge reminded me of the cop that arrested me. So I thought, no way I'm going to get a fair shake here. So the judge begins to speak. He says, "This is not the official hearing. Do not, I repeat, do not try to plead your case. My job here is only to set a date for the actual hearing." Everybody nodded in agreement. When the first inmate was called to speak, he said, "Man, okay, look, I was speeding and I ran the red light, but I was just trying to get to work on time. You know what I'm talking about?" And the judge gave him a court date 3 months from that day. The next inmate was called to speak, and he told the judge, "Look, Judge, I ain't do shit. I was in my house. They had no reason to be in my house without no damn warrant." The judge gave him a court date set for 6 months from that date. I was up next. I said, "Your Honor, I was supposed to have left to go to Western Illinois University to start the fall semester before this unfortunate incident occurred. If there's any way that you could expedite my hearing, I'd greatly appreciate it." And he looks at me, and he looks down on some papers, and he looks at me, and his little bushy gray eyebrows raised up, and he said, "Wait, you're in here for trespassing? Jesus, that doesn't even make any sense. Look, I'm releasing you today, time served. Good luck with the semester." I thanked him profusely. I was released later that day, and I went to the Greyhound station with my old ticket and my fresh court release papers, and they took sympathy on me and gave me a one-way ticket out of town, leaving the next morning. I spent the night crashing on a friend's couch, told them what had occurred. They also had a sympathetic ear. They gave me a joint and some cookies. They knew exactly how to cheer me up. The next morning, I was the first one on the bus. And as the bus pulled off, the sun was shining, no clouds in the sky, but the birds were still singing and shit. The roar of the bus engine snapped me out of this thought. An hour later, we're on the highway, and I'm kind of drifting off to sleep. And I wondered if that really nice suspected killer ever made his way to England for his authentic jellied eel I really hoped he did. I had one last thought before sleep finally took me. I thought, you're all the same. And then I said out loud to myself, yeah, perhaps. But I'm free now, bitch. The elderly white lady sitting next to me looked kind of scared. I just kind of shot her a smile and I closed my eyes. Thank you.
I didn't know it was that Gregory, did you, Hamill? Never mind.
We're all the same,
Well, we were talking about your girlfriend, but next up is Dorothy Cleveland, just a remarkably warm and wonderful woman, and I'm not even sure how I got to know her, probably via cheap theater. Co-author of a book called Beyond the Sword Maiden, which I haven't read. But my understanding is that it is the heroine's journey and sees the perspective as not more important, but as important as the focus always being on the hero. And I think it just sounds like a visionary book. Tells all over the country, founding member of Story Arts in Minnesota, a longtime member of National Storytelling Network, and a good friend and regular performer at Cheap Theater, Dorothy Cleveland.
Woo!
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, I like heroines. The story I'm going to tell is my adaptation of a Colvina tale called Wormwood. The young woman named Wormwood ran barefoot through the woods, and when she came to the dilapidated mansion, there was a spring of hope in her heart. She had been running for 3 days and her bare feet were bloodied and she was still in the nightgown that she woke up in. The door was ajar, so she went in, she explored. The place was empty, so she went upstairs to one of the bedrooms, fell on the bed, completely exhausted, and slept. About 4 hours later, 4 men showed up at the door. Coincidence? Magic? The story does not reveal. But the men came in, sat down in 4 chairs facing each other, hung their heads, did not say a word to each other, and wrung their hands. And there they sat. Now there were clouds that night. And when the sun set, there was no moon. And so the glow from the lantern came on, all by itself. And the lantern began to speak. He said, "Light brings a story, and I want to hear yours." Now, the 4 men, so we don't get confused, because the story does not give them names, was an old king, a young king, a doctor, and the doctor's servant. And the lantern said to the old king, "You start." Now again, magic? The king starts to talking. He said, "I am a king. I don't know how you know that, but I am a king and I have 5 daughters. My wife was with child, and she feared that if another daughter came, I would kill the baby. So when the baby did come, she gave the baby to a nursemaid to care for. I came in and said, 'Where's the baby?' And she told me the story, and she said the nursemaid has her. Well, we went to the nursemaid, and the nursemaid said, 'Oh, I left the baby on a wormwood bush in the forest.' So the queen and I went to the wormwood bush, but there was no trace. And so for years, I have been searching for my lost daughter." Now, the light in the room grew brighter. And the lantern said, "Young king, you tell me your story." And the young king said, "I found Wormwood. She was about 12 years old and very feral. She was living in the forest with an old hermit. And the old hermit was laying on his bed, dying. And so I offered to take Wormwood to my castle. And so I did. And I hired 2 teachers to teach her about intellect and housekeeping. And on her 18th birthday, I proposed. And Wormwood consented to marry me, and it was a grand feast. And I was pleased with my queen. But it wasn't long before I had to go on a trip. It was a long trip, and on the trip, I met a man. And the man said, "Oh, you're bragging about your new wife, hey? I bet you I could bed her, and I will bring you proof." And the king said, I don't think so. And the man was very convincing. And so they made a bet. And within a month's time, the man brought back a little box. And in the box were the hairs from the mole on the back of the king's wife. Oh, the young king said, I was furious. And so when I got home, I didn't bother to talk or ask questions because that was not my style. Instead, I just grabbed Wormwood, threw her in the carriage, drove deep into the forest, threw her out of the carriage, and then whipped her like a stubborn mule and left her for dead. Now, when that man heard what I had done, he felt awfully guilty. And he came to me and he said, it was trickery. I hired an old woman to befriend the queen in your absence. And it was that old woman who cut the hairs and put them in the box. I never slept with your wife. And so I have been searching for months for my lost wife. It was just before dawn, and it was the darkest it could be outside when the lantern shone as bright as the midday sun. The lantern said, "Dear doctor, tell your story." And the doctor said, well, I found Wormwood on the path in the forest. She was beaten almost to death, and my wife and I cared for her and brought her back to health. And when she was well, she had nowhere to go. So we asked if she would be the nurse for our young daughter. And she did. But one morning, I woke to find bloody sheets. And the child, the throat was slit, and Wormwood was gone. And so I have been searching for 3 days to find Wormwood. And when I do, I will kill her. Now the doctor's servant was scratching his knees, and his head was ever lower than it was before. He had no desire to talk. And the lantern said, but doctor, this was not true. For in your house there is a jealous servant, and that jealous servant is the one who slit your daughter's throat. The servant jumped up to run, but the 3 men grabbed him by arms and by a leg, and they pulled until he was by bloody pieces on the floor. Then the three men sat down. Now, listening to all of this was Wormwood. When she heard the voices, she came from the bedroom and she hid at the top of the stairs where they could not see her, and she listened to her life being told. And that is when the lantern spoke. He said, "Wormwood, come down. You have nothing to fear." And Wormwood, with shaky knees, made it to the bottom of the stairs, and she stood with a lantern between her and the three men, and she said, "Nothing to fear?" These three men, in their anger, wanted to kill me. These three men robbed me of the position I was supposed to have in life. It was the old king first. He went down on his knee, then the young king, and then the doctor. And oh, there was wailing and pounding of chests. "Forgive me, forgive me, forgive me." And the lantern said, "Forgiveness may come in time, but trust may never come again." Now, the end of the story goes something like this. Given the time and the circumstances, Wormwood chose to return to her king. It was one place where she would have both wealth and power, but not only that, but independence to do what she wanted. And for the rest of her life, no one harmed her again. And so it was good. And as for the lantern, well, the lantern never spoke again. But it did dance lovely shadows on the wall of Wormwood's bedchamber. Thank you.
That was excellent. I'm going to read a piece I wrote in I don't know when I wrote it, over 20 years ago. And it's okay. What's personally troubling? Right. It's the same thing I'm writing now. This, though, was when I, for only 20 years, was kind of upset with life. And anyway, so this is that take. But this is not about work so much in the regular work world, but working in the so-called world of poetry. And it's called Gang Initiation. Poets suck, man. You got it. Hey, don't ruin the chorus for everybody else. One poet drives around the block several times, gets a feel for the neighborhood, fences, shutters, places without addresses before getting to the door. A second poet drives like a maniac, skips a stop sign, runs the light, snaps fingers, and is on the porch like that, his radio full blast. Another poet gets there via nondescript side streets. Memories about nondescript side streets in New Jersey shows up with a nondescript crowbar, a stick of dynamite, an ordinary childhood. One poet calls in sick, which goes without saying. I mean, I don't know where the hell poets are supposed to call in when they're sick, but that they're sick goes without saying, which I've just said twice in 3 lines. Imagine if we said something that didn't go without saying, something that had to be said. Now that would be poetry. That would be saying something. One poet invites all the other poets over for cocktails and clever talk about dead poets who drank too much. It's a delightful, exclusionary event, though all that attend will afterwards say just the opposite. When the word door comes up during an after-cigar word association game, the poet at bat says, "Deadbolt." I try to get to the door by taking a bus. I transfer on impulse, go perpendicular, don't watch for landmarks. I watch the riders. I pull the buzzer when it's too late, get off by a burning church, and watch the holy water steam. I walk and walk, can't see the numbers. I knock on doors, get lots of wrong directions, a few Halloween treats, and $2 for delivering the paper. I move into one of the houses, mow the lawn, plant a cherry tree for my unborn to cut down, even chase a squirrel into a drain pipe. One morning, when I crawl out of bed to answer the door, I know it's a poet. He is here on behalf of the other poets to explain what the door means. He has diagrams and flouncy words. He talks like limestone. When he looks into your eyes, blood wells out of his. A golden glow circles his head. As slowly and deliberately and limestone-like, he says, this door means there's more. A way and a way in, a way out, a place to put a mat on either side. I shake my head in wonder at the certainty of vision, the narrowness of wisdom, the impurity of truth. This is funny, I finally say. You don't have to come out here to show me the door. There are millions of doors that go nowhere, doors that lead to meaningless steps, metaphorical doors, unbuilt doors, boarded up doors, aluminum doors that dream of becoming revolving glass doors. You really don't get it, he states with a stare. Then he pulls shut my door like a slam in reverse, but the bang that it makes can barely be heard. Yes, poetry sucks, all right. Vote by mail. Vote by sonnet. Thank you very much to Hamill Griffin-Cassidy, who does all the stuff that makes us appear here and now, and Kismet the cat, and Dawn, eternally, Dawn the moose, and especially I'd like to thank Gregory Pickett and Dorothy Cleveland and you for watching Dogs Without Cabins. Thank you very much.